Hey everyone, this is Dylan, and today we're going to be doing a movie review for you guys. So the movie we're reviewing today is Heart Eyes. So now let's get into the synopsis of this film. This film revolves around Allie and Jay, who are co-workers that meet on Valentine's Day after a disastrous marketing campaign that was created by Allie. Jay was brought in to kind of help steer things the right direction. And so he just happens to show up on Valentine's Day, and he and Allie decide that they're going to go out to dinner and solve this campaign issue. Unbeknownst to them, there is a serial killer on the loose called Heart Eyes who is attacking and killing people who are a couple. And for all intents and purposes, they look like a couple. They get wrapped up in the whole Heart Eyes killer and starts to be stalked by them. And that's where I'm going to leave the synopsis. I think this is our first mainstream Valentine's Day horror movie in quite a while. I'm sure that there might have been one or two before this one, but the last one that I remember coming out was the My Bloody Valentine remake. It came out in the late 2000s, and I miss these kind of like holiday-themed horror films, which we did have a couple here and there. It's definitely a missed opportunity from these movie studios to do these themed movies so that they start to become more of a tradition for the holidays. Like last year, I watched the Thanksgiving movie for Thanksgiving. And I mean, Christmas kind of has the market cornered on these types of movies, but there's plenty other holidays throughout the year that could definitely work. Another thing about this movie that I think is incredible is the way that they are able to intertwine a rom-com and a slasher film and pretty much have it be seamless. Because I would say that this film is like a rom-com if you added a slasher in it. So I think that that is a really fun idea, and I thought that it was executed pretty well. Like, I got those rom-com elements, and then you get the slasher part. There's moments where Jay and Allie are running away from the killer, and then they think that they've lost them, and they're kind of in like a little compromised position where they're face to face or whatever, and then they start to kiss, and then the killer comes out. And it's funny because there's this running gag throughout the film that they're not a couple, but it's very clear that throughout this movie, they're starting to really start to like each other. And it all takes place over the course of Valentine's Day night. So what's more romantic than screaming and running for your lives together? Another thing I wanted to talk about related to this movie is, yeah, it basically is a Scream ripoff, which is interesting because it is from the same studio that has taken over Scream. But I mean, what isn't the slasher genre without Scream ripoffs? Some of the best movies from the 90s that aren't Scream are Scream ripoffs. So I'm not that opposed to it. It does make things a little bit more predictable because they're kind of following that formula, but I still think it works for this movie. And the Heart Eyes killer is actually really interesting. So his mask is supposed to be like the heart eyes emoji. And so you get that feel, and like the mouth is a little unsettling, and the heart eyes are actually really cool. Unfortunately, I think that they're the most cool when they're lit up, and that only happens like once or twice in this film, which is unfortunate because I wish that it was all the time. I think it does kind of work in relation to this killer, because if his eyes were lit up the whole time, people would be able to see him coming from a mile away. So I think that it kind of works. There's also a practical reason why his eyes couldn't light up, and it was because I was listening to the Colors of the Dark podcast who were interviewing Josh Ruben about the film, and one of the co-hosts, Rebecca McKendry, was like, Josh, this is something that I've tried to do before, so how did you do this to get the eyes lit up? And basically, when the eyes are lit up, the actor underneath with the mask on can't see a thing. So that's the part of the reason why the eyes were not lit up the entire time. But I think that that is pretty cool. And then also, I kind of digged the weapons that he had. He had a crossbow, so the Cupid thing. He also had like throwing knives, which ended up being really cool in some of the scenes. He had like arrows that he didn't even need to put in like a crossbow. They would just kind of like, they were probably, I don't know, maybe like that long, and then I guess they were trigger activated or something. You just pushed it and the arrow would shoot out. So that was also pretty cool. So he really had kind of like an arsenal of weapons that he could just choose from depending on what is happening with the chase and the victim. So I thought that that was actually really cool and kind of differentiates this killer from somebody like Ghostface, who has a hunting knife, and that's it. And then finally, before I get into spoilers for this movie, I wanted to talk about the cast, because I think that this cast was really great, particularly Mason Gooding and Olivia Holt. They have such great chemistry, and Mason Gooding, I love Mason Gooding. He's one of the reasons I wanted to see this film, and he's just one of those like really lovable, like himbo type characters or actors, and he was great. Olivia Holt was great. Devon Sawa and Jordana Brewster are also really nice. They are playing detectives, and there's a lot of comedy there. Particularly Devon Sawa is a little bit more comedic, and if you've seen the Chucky television show, you know that he can definitely do it, and he's not afraid to go there with his comedy. So that was really fun to see them back. And overall, I think everyone does a great job, and if we get a sequel to this movie, which it's possible, if they go the Scream route, they can have a new killer come in for the next movie, and I'd be a-okay with that, because I do really like these characters, and I'd like to see them back in another movie and see where they're at in their lives. So definitely wouldn't be opposed to that. And so I wanted to leave this non-spoiler part of my review with my rating of the film. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I debated on giving it a 4.5, to be honest, because I give my ratings based off of enjoyability, and I really enjoyed this film. But I did kind of take off a full star for a couple of the things in this movie that I thought didn't necessarily took me out of the film a little bit. I also didn't really like the killer motivation. I will talk about that in the spoiler section, but there were just a couple things. But I did find this movie extremely enjoyable, and it was a really good movie watching experience. I saw this in a Marcus Theater at the Super Screen DLX. I don't really know what that means exactly, but it was really nice experience. We had Dream Loungers. It was the whole shebang. Really great. Definitely recommend that you guys go check this out in theaters if you can, because it's definitely a fun time. Take a friend, take a loved one, and just go watch it and have a good time. Now, let's get into my spoiler part of this review. So if you have not seen Heart Eyes and you don't want to hear spoilers, click off this video, come back to it later after you've already seen the film. But let's get into this killer reveal. So Allie and Jay are in the midst of the drive-in fight sequence with Heart Eyes, and Heart Eyes is about to kill Jay, and Allie comes and smashes him over the head with something. And we see that blood starts to form, and we think that he's about to tip over any second to like pass out or whatever. And then instead, he turns around, grabs Allie by the throat, and presumably starts to choke her. But Jay is still underneath him, being straddled by Heart Eyes, and Jay takes the machete that was about to kill Jay with and stabs it right into Heart Eyes' stomach, falls over, and dies. Like the Scooby Gang, Allie takes off the mask and reveals the killer, who is somebody we don't know. His name is Eli, and we don't know who he is. And so I'm like, what is going on? And then, like, the police start coming and the ambulance and everything. And I'm like, is this movie wrapping up? Is this really going to be somebody that we had no idea who they were? So then everyone kind of just leaves, goes away. And Allie goes back to her apartment, is really kind of sad and depressed. I mean, can you imagine you have been chased for your life and then you just go home and pretend like it's normal? So she decides that she's going to go get Jay. She really likes Jay, wants to spend her Valentine's Day with him. But then she gets this call. She gets to the airport, she gets this call, and it's Heart Eyes telling her to go to this church. And once we get there, we have our second and third killer reveal. So the second person revealed to be Heart Eyes is David, who was the IT guy from the police station. Then the camera pans over, and third Heart Eyes killer is Janine Shaw, the other detective. I was okay with these killer reveals. I think that the Eli reveal and the David reveal was kind of, I don't know, a little weird, just because we didn't even really know those characters. They literally, well, Eli never even showed up, but David showed up for like maybe a minute, and then that was it. And we were like, okay. I guess it was a little bit of a surprise, because we're like, you had like no screen time and now you're the killer. I did appreciate that they didn't do like the classic like Scream killer reveal, where after they reveal who Ghostface is, the person that it is, or people kind of go cuckoo bananas and just kind of just go crazy. And it's like, okay, so they didn't really go crazy in this, which I did appreciate. They did reveal their motivation for their killings, and they said that Eli was a fanboy of them, so he would do anything that they said. And Janine and David have a kink, and the kink is killing people together. So that was their motivation. So I saw this when I was that motivation when I was going back through the Wikipedia of the plot synopsis, and I was like, oh wait, that is what they said the motivation was? Because I thought I missed it in this movie. I was like, I don't really understand what the motivation was, or I don't know, I must have missed it. I was paying attention to something else on screen. I don't know. So that was what it was. And I do remember them mentioning it, but I must have zoned out at that moment, because I was like, this is the motivation? That makes, I guess, a little sense, but also like no sense at all, because it really is kind of super random. And so one of my favorite parts of this movie was that third act, after the killer reveals, and then Allie and Jay and Janine and David all fight. I thought that was really excellent and a really fun time. And there's some like real gross kill stuff that happens at this end thing, where Jay shoots the arrow through David's face, so it kind of like goes in through his eye, down through his nose, and then he kind of like falls back and ends up knocking over a whole bunch of candles and kind of encased in wax almost. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then Allie and Janine kind of go at it, and Janine's death is actually really interesting, because it is basically the death of Saint Valentine, the same kind of idea, and it's conducted with a Saint Valentine statue. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and pretty cool for a death. And like I said, overall, I thought that this was a super fun movie and will definitely make my Valentine's Day movie rotation. I think it's really fun to watch alone. It's great to watch together, and definitely recommend that you guys check it out if you've never seen it before. But that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below if you went and saw Hard Eyes this past weekend, or if you're going to see it this upcoming weekend for Valentine's Day. And remember, if you're not already subscribed and you'd like to be, please hit that subscribe button down below and give this video a like if you liked it. Thank you guys for watching and have a great day. Bye.